Kevin, thank you so much for coming on Fraud Busting. It's really neat to have you here today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're both, a friend of ours introduced us, and we're both members of the National Speakers Association, and I just had never, I guess we just never bumped into each other there. So it's, in a pandemic, I guess this is how we meet.
Yeah, right. This certainly makes it easier.
Yeah, for sure. Now you got your CSP, your Certified Speaking Professional, a couple of years ago. I got mine last year.
Oh, congratulations!
And so you got to walk across the stage at our conference, and so because that's the highest earned designation a speaker can really get, and it takes a lot of peer review and customer reviews and video reviews and the whole thing. So high five for getting that.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I didn't get to walk across the stage last year because there was no conference, but some friends sent a singing telegram to my house to celebrate. So I feel like I'm covered with the celebrations.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So let's talk just a little bit of small talk about you. Where are you right now?
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh, okay. So it's warmer there probably than here in Boulder. We got 8 inches of snow last night, so
oh my,
not too psyched about that.
No, we had 8 inches of sunshine, so
I'm ready for
I don't want to rub it in though.
Oh yeah, well thanks. And so what have you been, you've been off the road this year, probably like most speakers. What have you been doing with your time?
Well, I looked at this pandemic as an opportunity to do some things that I've always wanted to do, like bucket list type items. So I started some of those projects. And
no, wait. What are those?
Well, so I started taking Spanish lessons.
Oh,
I've always wanted to take Spanish lessons. There just never was a priority for taking up time. Okay. And I took golf lessons last summer, which has been wonderful. Mm-hmm. So and then just getting, taking advantage of a little bit more time for exercise routines and just self-care, personal care.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I did a little more of that too. I did golf lessons as well. So
nice.
We'll have to go play. Next time we meet up, me and you, let's go.
Right. Yeah. We'll go hack up the greens really well.
Yeah. Well, let's try to leave the greens intact. We can hack up the fairways.
I didn't take putting lessons. I just took golf lessons.
Okay. You can hack up the greens. So let's talk a little bit about you. I'm so fascinated to know more about your story, because you ended up getting kind of sucked into a fraud scheme that you didn't know anything about. And then there's been a lot of really cool work, I think, that you've done on the other side of that, like trying to understand things more deeply and how you didn't really see what was coming. So you want to take us into the story, and then we'll talk about what you've been doing since then.
Yeah. So where to start? It's such a long story, and we've got such a short time together. All right, so let me go back. I have been a self-employed entrepreneur most of my career. And so starting one business, moving on to another business, I had a small number of successes in the past and more failures. So then I ended up owning the 13th largest Century 21 franchise in the country in Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool. One thing led to another. I ended up being on the board of directors for 31 of the different franchise owners in the Maricopa County area. That led to a speaking engagement back in '94 with Century 21. So that's when I officially got paid to start speaking. And of course, they overpaid me because I had no experience. And
take the money and run, Kev. Take it.
I know, right? But it was great. So I got into the speaking industry completely by accident. I spoke for Century 21 initially all over the Western states, and then branched out nationally. And then I started a .com company in 1995. Sold my real estate company, started this technology company helping realtors get onto the internet.
Okay.
And it was actually a precursor to Realtor.com. And then Realtor.com actually tried to buy my company. I said, no, that was really stupid.
Uh-oh.
They went public. I had no idea what that really meant back then. So then homeseekers.com bought my company and became a paper millionaire for a brief moment. That was a pretty amazing, pretty awesome feeling. Yeah, that was huge. And all this is really important to the story because after I sold my company with Homeseekers and then the .com bubble burst and I lost my portfolio because of my stupid choices on margining it. Then I met a buddy from church who said he had an investment opportunity. So I took close to the last $10,000 I had in savings at that point after the .com bubble burst and invested it into a startup company. Well, a company had been actually in business for 6 years at that point, but they were getting ready to go public themselves. And so I became a stockholder in this up and coming preventative healthcare company. And then a few months into that position as a stockholder, my same friend said the CEO wanted to talk to me about a consulting position. I had heard about my biz dev background. So now, flash forward, I am a stockholder and now I'm a consultant directly to the CEO of this up and coming IPO. So I'm pretty stoked.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. And my head is pretty big and my ego is super inflated. It was ridiculous. But because my mindset, my ego and my growth in entrepreneurship, there was a lot of blind spots that I didn't know were there and they were about to become, known. And so what I didn't realize is that this boss who I had become a consultant for and was supposed to be 30 to 90 days. I ended up with him 15 months of his 7-year run. And he turns out he was running the largest stock fraud in the history of the state of Washington.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So for 7 years, he took $91+ million from over 5,000 investors.
Wow. So was it a Ponzi scheme kind of situation? Or?
Not a Ponzi scheme. Ponzi scheme more like taking investors' money and paying other investors dividends. So it's just a shifting of money. He was just straight up selling a dream. And people by the droves were buying into the dream. So he was selling stock illegally because he didn't register properly and do all the things that the SEC would normally require.
So it's like out of the trunk of his car. That's what I'm hearing.
No. I mean, that could be the conjured up image. He had a legitimate bricks and mortar business.
Okay.
And so he had a really great story and a really great front and a beautiful prospectus. He just wasn't doing things the way he should have been doing them legally.
Okay.
As far as with registering with with the SEC or the state at the time. So people were buying stock and people kept on buying stock. So they would invest once and then multitudes of people would buy more. Some of the stockholders had been investing and buying stock with him for 5 of the 7 years. So he was just brilliant at what the FBI later called kernels of truth stuffed with a lie.
Oh, there you go. Alternative facts. That's what that sounds like. So
the what?
I said it sounds like alternative facts.
Yeah. So he had a great facade, and he had famous people supposedly on his board. John Elway was supposed to be a member of the board. Trent Dilfer actually wore the Xenetics company baseball cap on national television the year that they won the Super Bowl and during the interviews.
Oh.
How did he arrange that? He just probably paid for that spot on top of his head with the cap. So he bought that kind of publicity. He had Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, had purchased, allegedly, I never did find out if this is true, but I actually met Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal at a birthday party thrown by the boss on their behalf. So flew several of us to LA and picked us up in limos, brought us to this birthday party. All this facade, we had no idea because it all looked real and it all felt real. And you meet a celebrity and who's endorsing the company, wearing the product. You're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, and again, with the what I realized in hindsight is because of the super inflated ego that I had, having grown to a point where I sold my company, I was, largely oblivious to what was going on. I was so wrapped up in the ego of, being part of another up and coming multi-billion-dollar IPO.
Wow. Okay. So then what happened?
So here I am working away, and a long story. And in fact, the story is entirely in my book, by the way.
Blind Spots.
Blind Spots: Why Good People Make Bad Choices came a bestseller in August of 2017 on Amazon. I
love that cover. That's really cool.
Yeah, thanks. And so I won't give you all the details just because it's in the book and it's too much. But he was supposed to take the company public. I became a consultant in September of 2000. And the company was supposed to go public shortly thereafter. And then there was the hanging Chad election. And then there's just one story after another as to why the delay of the IPO. And so for 15 months that I worked with him, there was just a delay. And there was always a great story behind it. And we bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. 34 employees, all but one pretty much stayed close to the end. And and so there was a lot of red flags, but the story was always so great, and there was always kernels of truth. So when we'd investigate the red flags, we would find those kernels and be like, oh, well, there it is. That's exactly what he said. So it's got to be true.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So then how did it come crashing down? Because eventually it did, right?
Yeah. Eventually it came crashing down. He was under investigation for a couple of years. We had no idea. The investors started getting too restless. And then there was a cease and desist that came out from the state of Washington in April of 2001. The cease and desist basically said, stop selling stock. You're in violation. So his story to that was he had violated securities rules and was going to be slapped with huge fines. But don't worry about it, because at the federal level, they're just waiting for the state to finalize the process so that at federal level, they can go public. And that he had Jim Sargent on his legal team, who was the former head of the SEC, and all the big boys behind closed doors, one of those conspiracy theories.
Right.
We're going to push through the paperwork. Well, that story was validated to some degree. There was a Jim Sargent. He was a former head, and he was an actual attorney on the payroll with this guy.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, he had Christopher Warren's legal team in California on payroll. I mean, it was fascinating what this guy did to create those kernels of truth. So many of us, most of us, stayed through the cease and desist. And in fact, the prosecutor said if I'd have quit at that moment, I would not have been wrapped up into this whole web. But I stayed, true believers, right? And then finally, in January of 2002, the FBI came knocking at my door, did a raid on all like 12 employees of the 34, and including the offices. And they came in with search warrants looking for anything they could get their hands on related to the boss and the company. And that's when I realized something was dreadfully wrong.
Yeah.
There were some other red flags we can talk about, but that was like the icing on the cake. I still didn't know that he was a criminal. I figured he was being, something was wrong, dreadfully wrong.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that he was a criminal. I thought there was maybe a conspiracy trying to shut down the business, because that's what he wanted us to believe. But at that point, I hired an attorney, and through a long and short process, ended up realizing that, I was wrapped up in something way beyond me. And so I agreed to plead guilty to my part in the conspiracy. So I pled guilty to conspiracy to commit securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and mail fraud.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What a shock that day must have been, huh?
Oh, it was the worst day of my life.
Yeah. So it seems like you had like a transformation process in prison. Is that an accurate statement? Or like there was some soul searching, I think, that went on there. You want to get into that a little bit, or maybe there's another gap to the story you want to fill in there?
Well, that's a good leap into prison. So the transformation started when I was working with my public defender. The government seized everything that we had, so they assigned a public defender to me. I was fortunate to get the number 2 in the federal public defender's office. She turned out to be a great attorney. But for the first month, we were meeting on a regular basis, several times a week. Couldn't stand her, and every time I'd leave her office, I'd be crying because she'd be accusing me of being the kingpin, or being a fraudster, and she was badgering me horribly.
Oh my goodness, your own lawyer.
My own lawyer. And I didn't, and I mean, even telling me that my friends were rolling over on me, confirming with them that I'm the bad guy. And I found out about a month into it that, I realized that this is part of the game that she had to play, because she was testing my resolve. She had to find out what was truth and what wasn't.
Okay.
Right. So we were in her office, and at one point, just never even sat down. She turned basically and she says, listen, she goes, you need to sign this plea bargain. And they wanted me to sign a 10-year plea, agreeing to serve 10 years for a crime I didn't believe I did. So I wasn't willing to do it. So I was arguing with her the whole month. And that particular day, I continued to argue. I was like, I'm not signing it. We're going to trial, because I didn't know he was committing a crime. And I've seen enough Law and Order to know.
Because we're all pros now that we watch Law and Order.
Right? Yeah.
And CSI, that too.
It's like you have to have intent to commit a fraud. That's my thinking, and I had no intent. But then she finally turned to me. This is where the transformation, and now we can lead toward the next step of this conversation you asked about. But the transformation started in this very moment, this aha moment, where she said, "I finally get it." She goes, I understand why we're not seeing eye to eye here. You're seeing this through a moral perspective. I'm seeing it through a legal perspective.
Yeah.
She goes, morally, I believe you. She goes, in fact, I know I can convince the jury that you had no idea that you were helping him with a fraud. She goes, but legally it doesn't matter. She said, because basically all it takes is one person in the conspiracy to know a crime is being committed. Anybody else can be swept up in the conspiracy under the very loose conspiracy laws. So that for me was the aha moment that changed forever the course of my thinking. And I began to realize why two people can witness the same event and not have the same perspective or the same understanding of what just happened. So that began my quest for what was I thinking and why was I thinking and how can I avoid that in the future? Those blind spots.
Wow. Okay. So what you're sitting in jail, right? I suppose this, I'm just going to make it up. You tell me what really happened. So you're sitting in jail and you start studying, right? About, is it internally, like how can I improve? Or is it, how do I see this so I don't let this happen again? Like, what's the thought process that had you jump so deeply into this body of knowledge?
Well, yeah, it started with this concept of how can I believe anything anymore?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like what is really wrong with my thinking so much that I could believe that this guy was a good guy doing good things when in fact he was a con artist, stealing people's money for 7 years.
Yeah.
So I challenged everything. I was just like, I'm not sure what I believe anymore. I don't know if my Christianity is even real. I don't know any of it.
Wow.
And so it really began this really deep soul searching and then understanding. It's like, I need to understand the process. I realized then that I'd never learned about critical thinking. I couldn't think back to any school that taught me it, or read any books about it specifically. It's like, and I've always been a book reader, but I never really understood the thinking process. And I had to understand, what was I thinking so I can learn how to think better and not fall prey to not just a facade or a fraud, but really just make better decisions in general.
Wow.
And so I started learning. I got my hands on any book I can get my hands on. I had a lot of books sent in over time and over the course of 33 months that I spent in the federal prison. And that's what I did. I spent a lot of alone time in the chapel library, just where it was quiet. Just reading and studying and literally sketching things out and trying to map out this process. What drives our behavior? And it was all for me. It was just because I wanted to be in charge of better behavior, better decisions.
Wow.
And then it morphed over the 33 months. I began to see a dramatic change in the way I viewed the world. My worldview was shifting. I was beginning to challenge all my perceptions and my beliefs. And so my mindset was improving and it was shifting very much more positive. And then it became a passion. Then I really was like, okay, now this is like eye-opening so much. So I've got to share this message with anybody and everybody who will ever listen. And having been a speaker prior back in the 90s, I thought, well, I'm going to jump back into the speaking business because what better way to, change the world is one audience at a time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love it. Okay. So you have do you want to get into like the framework, or do you want to talk, because I took your assessment this morning, which I thought was fantastic, and it nailed me, just like, boom, got it. And do you want to talk about the framework, and then like, how do you want to talk about these really cool findings, like that you, and how you're delivering those out?
Yeah, we can talk about all of that, because there's more to the story. The story is fascinating. The book actually reads like a novel, although it's a fact-filled book, and it's full of blind spot lessons. So anybody who's listening wants to get the rest of the details, and there's a lot more details. And I want to say this right now, Traci, is I'm not innocent. I didn't know my boss was committing a crime, but I totally own the fact that I was participating in that conspiracy, even though I was unaware. So, and the smoking gun, if you will, there's always a smoking gun. The smoking gun details are in the book as well. So there's no holds barred. Everything is out there.
Oh, I'm going to dig deep into that. I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't know when this is going to publish, but today my Kindle version is actually on Amazon at no charge. It's
cool. Yeah. So
promo.
Today's April 20th, just so we know. Yeah.
And anybody, after today, because I know this will publish at a later date, but after April 20th, people can actually get a complimentary copy, Kindle copy of my book if they just go to my website, kevinmccarthy.com/free book.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, super easy. So that said, leaving the story now behind, the assessment you took is the blind spot assessment, also on my website, /BSA for blind spot assessment. That assessment is based on science, the human behavior science of DISC, and it was intended to be short and sweet, and yet at the same time very actionable. So as you said, it pretty much nailed you for the most part.
Yeah.
It's about 86 to 92% accuracy rate. And what's happening now is I've got companies all over the world that are using that assessment, and I had no idea it was going to happen. I mean, I didn't build it for this reason, but this is because it's complimentary. It's on my website, and I get testimonials. I get feedback from people that leaders are using it. So we're now actually being deliberate with this, and we're teaching leaders how to take this and create blind spot conversations with their teams. And I'm working with a lady who's a manager of a big insurance company, and the feedback she got immediately from having this discussion with her team was, we want more, and the vulnerability that comes out of that. So this is the impact that's now happening as a result of, I guess, me going to prison. So,
oh man, yeah, that's
I don't want to sound like a martyr. I didn't take the bullet for everybody intentionally, but
silver linings, right?
Yeah, I just want to, it's like, I've got to share this. I've got, we can change the world if we can change the way we think.
Oh, exactly. So I came out as a competitor, but you have what, like 6 or 8 different?
There's 8 different styles. Yeah.
So, so what are the styles?
So there's 4 primary styles, and it's competitor, motivator, peacemaker, and analyzer. And then there's 4 blended styles, and that's a combination of 2 different styles, as you can, the word would say. And so typically this assessment will lead people into one of those 8 styles. It's going to be fairly accurate. Not everybody agrees with every bullet point, but largely it's
good.
accurate.
I thought it was good.
Right. Yeah. And then it opens up the conversation, because it's a third-party tool that helps conversations become more vulnerable, because we can say, so tell me about those blind spots, and you're referring to the report. You're not asking somebody to be, sharing something transparent that's never been revealed. Let's just talk about the report.
Yeah, or that you're going to get in trouble for with your boss, or feel like you're being, picked on, or people know too much about you or something. It seemed really, it was kind of perfect, like, because it was just like, you know what, here's how you kind of operate, and if you got flaws, like, here's a list of where you maybe can improve, right? And mine was, Well, it's competitor. It's just what you think. Like it's like you like to win, and sometimes it goes off the rails because you like to win too much, and which is the big summary, right? And so my job is to pay attention more to people around me and make sure I'm getting differing opinions and seeing a big picture instead of just one goal, which is win. So, so what are some of the other ones? Can you describe them a little bit?
Well, and you just tapped into the word win, and that's that's what's called the driving need for the competitor.
And that's
and me too. And I'm an energizer, so I'm the blend between the competitor and the motivator.
Okay.
Whereas the motivator is the sort of charismatic life of the party. Let's have fun. Oh, squirrel! Wow. I mean, just constantly distracted. Winning's okay, but relationships are more important, and they want lots of relationships. It doesn't matter how deep they are. They want a lot of people around them because they're motivators. They love to be the center of attention, right? So I'm that energizer right between, but I lean toward the competitor side, and which is I also have that drive to want to win.
Yeah.
Well, our driving needs, according to Dr. Mark Scullard, who is a psychologist in human behavior. He says that we, somewhere between the ages of around 3 to 7 years old, we look at the world and the way the world impacts us. Now we do this subconsciously, and then we develop this driving need. So for us competitors, we may have looked at the world and went, "Oh my gosh, this place is a scary place. I mean, it's a tough place out here, and if I'm going to survive in this world, I'm going to have to own it and just make my way." Right. So we develop this drive to just be on top, to win, to control our own destiny. And so that's the driving need. So the driving need for a motivator is expression. So like if I'm going to survive, I've got to tell stories. I've got to interact. I've got to have a lot of social interaction with people. Right. Because that's part of how their personality and behavioral style develops. So the driving needs are really important to learn and to understand. And now for a competitor, the polar opposites are super important to understand too. So if you're on a team and you're a competitor and you're working with a peacemaker, then you are naturally, if left unaware, and that's a real key here, if left unaware, which is where I was up until prison, if left unaware, you and the peacemaker are what I like to warmly refer to as arch enemies.
Not peaceful.
Yes, just naturally you will clash because the peacemaker, all their driving need as a peacemaker is harmony. They want in fact, to the point where one of their blind spots as a peacemaker is they want harmony so much that they'll throw themselves under the bus. They'll take the blame just to keep the peace. Because they don't like conflict. They want the team to be in harmony. They want everybody, all the relationships around them to be in harmony. So even if it's not their fault, they'll accept it so there's no conflict. Well, that's a blind spot they have to work on, as a peacemaker. But a competitor who's not aware about the person they're dealing with, who happens to be a peacemaker, you and I, if left to ourselves, unaware, will start barking orders or just be real short and concise, and we'll give them bullet points and punchlines, and we'll get to, it's like, here's what I need to do it now, get it done, and we move on. And we think we think we're being efficient.
Exactly.
The whole time the peacemaker's going, whoa, slow down.
Yeah.
I need more details. I want some relationship here. You're all like task oriented. I'm people oriented.
I can feel this coming up in me right now. Like, oh my God, those people.
Right. But this is the way most leaders are, because most people are unaware. They're not as aware as we think we are. Tasha Eurich studies self-awareness as an occupational psychologist, and she wrote a book called Insight, which I highly recommend. A summary of that would be, 90 to 95% of us think we're aware, but she'll say that only 10 to 15% of us actually are.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
So, right. So we need to become more self-aware and then more others aware, which is also the foundation of emotional intelligence. That's part of the core dimensions of emotional intelligence. And so there's so much. So blind spots is that's my thing, right? And blind spots covers all these different dimensions. It covers emotional intelligence, diversity, inclusion, ethics, decision making, personality, and behavioral styles. It covers a lot of these different areas because all of these different facets of human behavior create blind spots, and we don't know it.
Right.
Because we don't know what we don't know.
So let's talk about this. A lot of fraud happens right under our noses. And I think we do a lot of justification to that. Like whenever I talk to a fraud, let's say a victim, they can always look back and see the signs, right? So what are your tips for in the moment, like starting to realize, like, wait a minute, something's not going right here, like, and see it objectively instead of rationalizing things away? Like, what's your tip on that? Like, but and you can even run that through your filters of your assessment if you want.
Yeah. So there's so many things that really need to be in play if you want to be protected against becoming a victim of fraud or being susceptible to becoming, as I did, an unwitting accomplice to a fraud, like your boss. I would venture to say, I don't have data to back this up, so just bear in mind, gut feel here. But just from all the studies, I would venture to say that there's a lot more acquiescing of employees to employers where the employers are doing things wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Whether they're unethical or whether they cross the line to illegal. That's a gray area to discuss in a whole different setting.
Right.
But how often are you seeing or feeling that there's something wrong, but you're going along with it? Because you're rationalizing, you're justifying, or you're in fear of you. Most Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
It's true. Yeah.
And so, I don't like what my boss is doing, but I can't afford to lose my paycheck right now. Can't afford to speak up. And I've talked to people in my audiences, and I've had, I do a lot of work with internal auditors and fraud examiners and
me too.
CPAs, a lot of financial people. And so I've had stories where it's like, this one lady comes to mind where she saw her boss she turned in her internal audit. The boss and the board challenged her and wanted her to make some adjustments to it because her audit was truthful and didn't want all the black and white. They wanted it to be gray intentionally.
Right. Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not doing that. I'm speaking the truth, and this report stands. So she ended up losing her job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But she spoke the truth, and she's so at peace with it and so happy about it. And life moved on and worked out for her, but that fear of losing your paycheck. So I say all that to say one of the ways you can challenge yourself is slow down and question what you're feeling. And most of us don't do that.
Oh, yeah. No, we don't do that.
No, our emotions drive our behaviors, and yet we don't challenge our emotions before we behave. Right. So here's a really classic, simple, and somewhat silly example, but I think everybody will get it. When's the last time you got up from your couch at home or your desk in your home office or wherever, and you walked over to the refrigerator and you opened the door and you just stood there and thought, I'm hungry. What can I eat? And as you're gazing at each of the shelves and you're looking around for something to eat, maybe you found something, maybe you didn't. But my challenge to you is, are you really hungry?
See, you're bad, because I am thinking about what snack I'm going to have right now. Oh, it's true. And so on that note, which is semi unrelated, I've had clients at go to where they have the meetings, it's not AA, but it's like Snackers Anonymous or something along those lines.
Sure.
I can't think of what it is.
Overeaters type place.
Yeah, Overeaters Anonymous. That's what it is. And she said, you know what? They never ask us in there if we're hungry or not. Like, they've never asked, are you hungry? Or have us ask ourselves that. So yeah, I think very insightful. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, that's as simple as that sounds, we don't challenge our emotions. And frankly, most of us don't even know the full gamut of our emotions. There's 4 primary emotions, or 6 or 8, depending on the psychology that you look into. Like. Yeah. But there's so many more emotions, and there's different degrees of emotions. And so we don't know even how to classify what we're feeling often. But anyway, my point is when you feel something, our gut instinct, some call it intuition, whatever you want to call it, that intuition sometimes can save your life. Now, not always, because our intuition, we can't just say, well, I go with my gut and call that good, because that's a mantra that we stick to. And it allows us to have cognitive laziness. That mantra just allows us to shut off our brains. And our gut is not always right. And so,
that's true too.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm going to push back, because some people are listening right now, they're probably going, mine is my gut. I always go with my gut, and I live a great life like that. It's like, okay, that's great. But if you really rationally think through every single gut check, they're not always right. Simply. All right. I mean, we can get into whole psychology of thin slicing, all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But the point is this, the point is check your gut, check your emotions. What are you really feeling? And there is a mantra that, I'm not huge into cliches and all that, but the one that everybody knows, if it sounds too good to be true, it's what? Probably not true. Right. Yeah. So if you are in a situation that seems like it could be too good to be true, you might want to take that a step further and start investigating. And you can't always do it yourself. I thought I could handle all the red flags, and I ended up justifying and rationalizing away these red flags. So in hindsight, now I've got a half a dozen people that are very close to me, my closest sphere of influence, who I can run things by, no matter how ludicrous, crazy, or whatever, and get some honest perspective. And they have permission. This is another tool. Give those close people to you permission to smack you figuratively upside the face, upside the head. Basically say, listen, Kevin, I don't care what you're thinking right now. We're telling you it's not right. There's something amiss. So here's a classic example. I'm also a certified national referee or international referee for the World Billiards Championships in Vegas.
Really? Okay. Wait. I have a question though. Do you know the Black Widow?
I actually have met. I've met the Black Widow. She's not healthy. Yeah, Jeanette Lee. Yeah, sadly. So. Oh no. Let's put some good thoughts out there in the universe, or pray for her.
I will.
She's battling some health issues. She lives in Florida. So I know Jeanette Lee. I've got a picture with her.
I rode an elevator with her once.
Is that right?
Yeah.
She's the Black Widow, but she's a sweetheart of a lady.
Is she? Yeah. Okay.
So I also play amateur pool here in the Phoenix area, and I was playing a league play last week, and there was a potential for a foul when my opponent was shooting. I won't go into too many details here, but the perspective, here's the example, is because there was a potential before he shot, we agreed, let's go call a referee to come watch the shot and make the judgment call. And in the rules of pool, the referee's word stands. Doesn't matter what you think. And not every referee is perfect, but for the most part, whatever the rest. So 3 people watched the shot, the referee, a nearby high-level skilled player, and myself, and we all said the same thing. That was a foul. Bad hit. The player said it wasn't a bad hit. I'm telling you right now, I have the best perspective standing over the ball. I saw the shot, and it's not a bad hit. I'm like, wait a minute. This is the same thing that goes for back to the story of have people around you that will tell you the truth, because that person started rationalizing and justifying why it was not a bad hit. 3 other eyewitnesses all saw from 3 different angles a bad hit. So sometimes I have to tell my friends, listen, I could get in my own head again and start rationalizing something. I need you to confirm and to force me. I mean, be strong with me and let me know that, Kevin, you've run this by 3 or 4 or 5 of us, and we all telling you it's not a good decision. You need to listen. Yeah. And I need to then own the blind spots. I need to own the idea that I've got blind spots, and then be humble enough to go, you know what? Okay, you're right. I'm probably just justifying again.
Wow. And it takes some bravery to do that, right? Because we all want to hear what we want to hear. And then, because I have friends that will tell me the truth as well. And I don't always, that's our deal, but I don't always like it. Right.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. Now I just got to know, what would a foul on a pool shot be? Would they hop the ball or have it go around? What?
All right, for all of you pool players, and I know there's lots of you.
I'm a competitor, Kevin. I have to know.
I don't have a pool balls right here in front of me. I've got some in my pool table and around the corner. But when you have the white ball and another ball this close together, where they're literally maybe an inch apart, half an inch apart.
Okay.
And you're getting ready to hit the white ball into the other ball.
Okay.
When they're that close apart, you hit the stick into the white ball is going to hit that ball and it's going to bounce back.
Okay.
It has to.
Right.
And it's going to bounce back into the stick. And when you hit that stick twice on the white ball, it's a foul.
Oh.
And so, yeah, now if you're playing in a pool hall, nobody really thinks like that. This is professional or amateur league type regulations. So, yeah, that's just one of many.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I learned something. Who knew?
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. One of these days, I'm going to actually do a whole video course on leadership principles around the pool table, because there's so many pools. There's so many facets of pool that actually apply to leading teams and running business.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, that's with a lot of sports. I used to be a professional bike racer, so I could probably do the same thing, but I'm going to talk about fraud and lie detection instead. So
there you go.
So, all right. So I know we got to get you back to your day. So if you could leave people with one tip, besides the ones that you've given, which are, I mean, blown away, fantastic. What do you got?
The most important letters in the alphabet. 6 letters. Write them down. Put them on the screen.
I'm ready.
STPCAP. STPCAP.
Okay.
Okay. Stop cap. There's a way to say that, just adding an extra O in there. But so STP is stop and put on your thinking cap. That's a good way to remember those letters. So STP for stop, or STP, is when we are in a situation where we perceive whatever stimulus comes through our senses, and it creates any kind of an emotion or requires any kind of reaction. Like you could be walking down the hallway when we all get back to work in buildings, and you catch somebody's eye, and that look on their face just gives you this sort of visceral reaction, like, what the heck was that look for?
Right.
Anytime you sense any kind of reaction, put in STP cap. Stop and put on your thinking cap. So stop means to stop, or STP means to stop temporarily, think deeply. So we have to get out of this automatic thinking. It's called System 1, according to Daniel Kahneman. System 1 is our automatic processing, where we just react automatically, like driving. We don't think about left hand over right hand. We just turn.
Sure.
Right. That's the automation. We have to kick ourselves out of that into System 2, which is our rational thinking process. So before the visceral reaction takes root, stop temporarily, think deeply, and then proceed deliberately. Now you can proceed rationally instead of irrationally, and you can act instead of react. When you're thinking deeply, now you're going to employ CAP. CAP is simply context, assumptions, perspective. What context am I missing here? What assumptions am I making? And what perspectives are available?
Got it. It's
a critical thinking model. It's a way to kick into the rational thinking, bring in other perspectives, understand the context of what's truly going on, and challenge our own assumptions about what assumptions we're making.
Oh, wow. Oh, I love that. Check in with yourself. That's what it is. It's check in with yourself. And we're not taught to do that, but man, when you do, you get some pretty interesting realities. Not all are easy to swallow. However, they're all valuable.
Well, and this is, we teach this to team leaders, anybody leading organizational teams. Anytime you're having a meeting and there's any kind of discussion and decisions that have to be made, use the same thing. Okay, let's stop and think about this, and let's think deeply. So, ask the team what context are we missing? What assumptions are we all making? And what other perspectives are available to us? Oh,
that's awesome. That's cool as a group too, I think.
Oh, totally.
Like really, really valuable. Okay. So how can people get a hold of you? Because people are going to want to get a hold of you. We know that your book is going to be, today is on Kindle, right, for free. But obviously, a hard copy is going to be better, paperback. But then it's going to be on your website as well. And then, because people are going to want you to come in and speak and realign their teams and their results, right?
Right.
So how do they get a hold of you?
So blindspots.com is my primary corporate website. And there's all kinds of assessments there, not just the complimentary blind spot assessment, lots of information. But go to blindspots.com. If you want to look for me as a speaker, then click on the speaking link. And I've got a 9-minute video there that'll give you more insight into my story that we haven't really touched on too much today. And then what else would I say? We have, so during COVID as a pivot, because as a keynoter, my stage time has been diminished.
Yeah.
I've done a lot more virtual stuff, obviously, and I've actually been doing virtual presentations since 2010. But I also partnered up with another blind spot person in Canada. And so now we've created Blind Spots Global together. And we're doing a lot of teamwork programs. We've got a full year of programming that we can bring to teams virtually. So it helps create a more cohesive team and a greater trust culture through this blind spot venture that we're setting forth on. It's really pretty awesome. So I say that because when you go to blindspots.com and you find the blind spot assessment, which is again /BSA, if you do that, and you take the assessment, you'll be invited to our Thursday morning blind spots Thursday. We call it BS Thursdays. Yeah. Now BS stands for blind spots. You can have it stand for whatever you want.
Whatever you want today, yeah.
But BS Thursdays, we have teams of companies coming to this just off and on. So it's free. It's every Thursday morning, 8:00 Pacific time. It's via Zoom, so you can just take the assessment and you can get signed up and jump in anytime. But then you'll get to ask questions, and we have all kinds of various teamwork and culture and lots of different topics that come up, and it's open discussion. So there's a lot of ways. Oh, that'd be
super valuable.
Yeah, a lot of ways to get value out of blindspots.com and become part of the tribe and part of the community, and ways to reach us and have us bring you in, or have you bring us in.
Yeah, for sure. They need to bring you, for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I tell you what, thank you so much for coming on Fraud Busting.
Well, hey, it's been a pleasure. Love what you're doing. Keep it up, because everybody needs help staying away from the fraudsters and not getting wrapped up in it accidentally or becoming a victim of it.